Jennifer Roback-Morse from the Ruth Institute, went on the Drew Mariani Show to discuss the impact of redefining marriage and its consequences on children and society. They explored how these changes affect family dynamics and the long-term implications for future generations. Don't forget, TP, check out and subscribe to our new YouTube channel, Ruth Out and About, for all our podcast interviews.
And I'd love to hear from you on this one, too. I don't know where people are. If hearts become so hardened, the minds become so darkened, that when it comes to the redefinition of marriage in this country, when it comes to same-sex marriage, that it's here forever, that it's here to stay. Or do you think that, like abortion, people will get back to what marriage is truly all about? Last year, I don't know if you remember Kim Davis, remember her and her attorneys? They went to the Supreme Court. They were asking them to consider overturning the Obergefell decision. That was the decision that redefined marriage in this country. Davis, of course, was the county clerk in Kentucky. She refused to issue a marriage license to two men. She says, I can't do it because of my religious beliefs. But the two men sued her personally. And because the Supreme Court refused her petition, she now's got to pay this huge amount of money. So she got punished personally for, saying, hey, I can't in good conscience do this. The decision to legalize same-sex marriage, right, so-called same-sex marriage, it has had erroneous consequences and just enormous consequences in the country. The whole idea is being pushed in the media that we're told, same-sex couples, they just want to be like everybody else, two men, two women. Let them get married. Why can't they get married? They're not going to bother anyone. Well, it turns out that wasn't true, right, as we knew it. Not long after that decision, you suddenly had a flurry of activity of these drag queen story hours in public libraries. You got public schools teaching kids about gender issues. You got same-sex couples hiring women as surrogates so that they, those women can have children for them. So it has really become a very muddy mess. And we got sold, as, hey, we're just two adults, right? We just want to do our thing. We're not going to bother anybody. And what ended up happening? We got to, it's not just that. I mean, it has a ripple effect. Nobody's talking about the kids. It ended up negatively impacting the kids, really the worst. A child needs a mother and a father, and most of what's caused a new movement, a coalition, is now beginning. There's something out there called Greater Than, and I just learned about this. This is relatively new to me. I'm going to put it on your radar. It might be something that develops. It might be big in the not too future. There's a campaign called Greater Than, and it's being organized by a group called Them Before Us. Right? Try to get the names all right here, and it seeks to place the needs of children before adults. And they've gotten a bunch of other organizations together, including Word on Fire. Right? That's Bishop Barron's Institute, Catholic Vote, Live Action, of course, the Ruth Institute. And they're pushing for overturning, the Obergefell decision. And they think this is a really strong angle. And as I said, Dr. Jennifer Roback-Morse will be with me in just a moment here. And if you want to join us, feel free to sound off at 888-914-9149. Dr. Morse, as you probably know, she's the president of the Ruth Institute, one of the groups in this coalition. And they're a wonderful organization. They've been with me many times in the past. They're a nonprofit, and you can find them at ruthinstitute.org. She's here today just to bring us up to speed a little bit on what's now developing. Doctor, good afternoon. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to talk about this topic. It's great, huh?
I just learned about it this week. The Greater Than campaign. First of all, congratulations. Thanks for being part of it. Let me start with this. I was asking those who are listening, do you think, that people's hearts have become so hard, their minds have become so dark, that they've accepted now, two couples being married, that it's even harder than it was back in 2015, 2017, when the Obergefell decision was underway, to possibly overturn this? Because if you look at national polls, attitudes have really changed to now the majority of people accept two men or two women getting married.
Well, that's true. The majority do accept it. But in the past few years, there's actually been a decline in support for undefined anything goes same-sex marriage, and surprisingly enough, Drew, it's the younger people who are, in some cases, there's a shift, particularly among young men, to say, no, we're not into this anymore. It used to be that. I mean, you're right. At the height of this movement to redefine marriage, it was the cool thing to believe that if anything goes, it's okay. Any two people, kids don't really care. It'll be fine. Yada yada yada. That was kind of hip and chic and everything. But in the 10 years that have passed, a number of things have happened, and among the things that have happened have been the whole explosion of the idea of transgenderism, which has insinuated itself into every aspect of society, basically. And I think a lot of people were taken by surprise by just how aggressive that movement was, and how quickly it followed on the heels of the Obergefell decision. Yeah. And so that has caused a lot of people to rethink the whole situation, right? And now, granted, there are a lot of people who say, transgenderism is terrible. I don't believe it, but I still believe in gay marriage. Yeah, there are a lot of people like that. Yeah. But there are also a lot of people who are going, let's move this ball back a little further and look and see what really happened here. And what did we agree to? What did we sign on to? So I'm seeing a sense of that. And that's one of the things I think.
How do you respond to that? Let me just take that argument here. There are a lot of people who have got loved ones, perhaps, that have their sons or their daughters in same-sex relationships. Maybe they've accepted it as part of the family, and they're saying, "Look, we accept this. These are two couples that love one another, but we're against drag queen story hours. We're against transgenderism. We're against this aggressive push to compel schools and churches and others to affirm this type of stuff." Is there a line there?
Well, in my opinion, that position is a transitory position, and in other words, I think ultimately you can't play around with the sexual revolution, if I could put it that way. You can't pussyfoot around about it. You have to kind of get down to the brass tacks and say, this was a mistake. A long time ago, this was a mistake. There were many things that led up to people saying gay marriage is a thing. It could be a thing. And among them are things that the Catholic Church has always been big on, like contraception, like removing the idea that sex and babies are importantly connected, right? That had some very long-term effects, and we were like the only guys who were willing to say that, undermining the permanence of marriage, which is what no-fault divorce did. And you and I have talked about that on this show many times, right? Yeah. A lot of people can see, if a married couple can break up for any reason at all, that means kids don't really have rights to their parents. That's all very shaky, and that's all very unstable. So what the heck difference does it make if we let two men get married or two women get married and they acquire a child through some kind of third party method or something? Well, what's the big deal? Well, the thing of it is now, we at the Ruth Institute and our friends at the event before us, who are spearheading the Greater Than Coalition, we have blocked that exit, Drew, because we are the ones who have been saying, hey, you know what? Divorce is bad for kids. Third-party reproduction is bad for kids. We shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be going further down the track. We should be moving back a few stations and trying to reverse our course here. And I think there are more people who are open to that kind of conversation today than there were 10 years ago.
My guest today is Dr. Jennifer Roback-Morse. Love to hear from you, too. You can sound off at 888-914-9149. Really it's exciting what you're planning to do, and I really hope it takes traction. And I think if people, Doctor, were able to see the, not just the transgender issues and the drag queen story hours. I think a lot of people have issues with that. But I think what happens when we remove either a mother or a father from a child's life by design. And maybe you can speak to that, because some people say, and I believe a child needs a mother and a father. I think that makes a difference. To those who think, well, what's wrong with two mothers or two fathers? What happens when you remove either a mother or father from that child? Well,
do you know what? We tried to talk about this 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when this topic was still considered debatable, and we used to say, and I can still say this, a lesbian woman may be a fine mother, but she can't be a father. I can't be a father. A woman can't be a father. And so that brings us to the question of, does the sex of the body matter for parenting? And before I go any further, let me just say, if you say the sex of the body doesn't matter for parenting, you have no basis for saying that the sex of the body matters anywhere. I mean, this is the most sex-based thing that we do, is have babies and take care of them. This is the thing that's built into the gendered nature of a mammal. Of all mammal species, it takes a male and a female. And so, if you say the sex of the body doesn't matter, well, why are we saying that the sex of the body matters in bathrooms or on the sporting teams or anything else? We really set ourselves up in a major way to head down the trans road there. But to back up and to get to the practical question that I think most of your listeners are going to see right away, that mothers and fathers interact with their children differently. We feel differently towards our children. We do different things naturally. I can be a firm disciplinarian, but it takes a different kind of effort for me to do that than it does for my husband to do that. And I think most of us know we can all list off all these things, and somehow, and it's true that you're not looking at absolute traits. You're looking at traits that have some variation, and so some women are more authoritative than some men, and any trait you can name could have that quality, but that doesn't overcome the fact that there are general tendencies and kind of general packages of manliness and womanliness that we as a society are afraid to face. I think we think that as soon as we say men and women are different, something bad is going to happen. We're going to be oppressing each other or something, or we're going to be oppressing ourselves, right? We're afraid of it, but we all know that it's true. And the kids know it's true. Doggone it, the babies know it's true. The baby prefers mama, especially at the beginning, right? I mean, it's just, and then as the child grows, this is the other part, Drew. As the child grows and matures, the roles of the mother and the father start shifting around. Different aspects of the mother become more important or less important. And the father really comes into his own as the child matures, because now dad is going to help the child out of the home and to have their encounters with the world and to help them be tough if they need to be tough and help them to protect themselves if that's what they need. The roles shift around. And I think what happens, we look at a baby and we go, the baby, that's pretty simple. Anybody can do that. But that's not true. Even as a baby, it's not really true, but it becomes less and less true as the child develops through time. And hopefully we're all going to be around as the child develops through time. We're not planning to just leave the kid at daycare for 12 years or something,
That's right. My guest today, Dr. Jennifer Roback-Morse. So we'll go to the phones in a second here. Let me open the phones to you. If you want to join us, it's 888-914-9149. We're talking about a new campaign out that may have the potential to overturn the Obergefell decision, which redefined marriage in our country, and taking a look at the impact on children. I don't know how you feel about this. Do you believe children's rights are being overlooked in today's marriage and family policies with surrogates and adoption and a litany of other things? Is it fair to that child? And have you seen firsthand maybe the impact of fatherlessness or motherlessness in your own community? And were you surprised also just where we are today? I mean, a lot of people are now accepting this. The culture seems to have shifted after the ruling. And I don't know whether that trend is going to continue. 888-914-9149. Let's go to the phones, Doctor. We'll take a call or two for you. Eric is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Eric, good afternoon.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
You got it.
What I struggle with is it seems that ultimately the argument against same-sex marriage is going to also be an argument against the permission of leniency toward divorce and contraception and premarital sex. And those obviously would be politically much harder to take political action against. And so I'm wondering if there's a focus on same-sex marriage without those other things being addressed, if that's going to just basically come off as an arbitrary, selection of a particular group of people. And in a sense, they would have a case, because if the other things aren't addressed but they're logically connected, then it does seem like it's kind of selecting one problem without addressing the others.
Great question, Eric. Thanks, Doctor. I'll let you respond.
Well, that is a great question. And I'll tell you something, I debated these issues from like 2008 until 2015, starting with Prop 8 and ending with the Obergefell case, and I got that question all the time, Eric. Very quickly, I realized that the justice of the question, and as a matter of fact, in my particular case, the only reason I ever got involved in the debate is because I knew that kids needed their parents. And I had already written 2 books about marriage and family. And the topic of gay marriage never came up. My first book, Love and Economics, that was about divorce and single parenthood and too much daycare. That's what I was worried about. And then all of a sudden, gay marriage hits the scene. And so I was always, tuned into that. And in the years since the Obergefell case came down, I have spent a lot of time talking about how all these issues fit together. And my book, The Sexual State, how elite ideologies are destroying lives and why the church was right all along. That book came out in 2018, Eric, and in it, I pulled together the arguments of that kind, because that's not the only one. The whole package of the sexual revolution, in a sense, led us to the idea that gay marriage could even be a thing, because if you haven't already accepted no-fault divorce, if you haven't already accepted sex without babies, if you haven't already accepted those things, gay marriage isn't going to really enter your mind. And so I spent a bunch of time dealing with that connection. I'm perfectly prepared to talk about all of it. And my colleague who started this campaign is a lady named Katie Faust, who founded an organization called Them Before Us. And what that means is them, the children, should come before us, the adults. And that organization specifically deals with third-party reproduction, divorce, and unmarried parenthood, and collects the stories of kids and what they've been through. So Katie and I, for sure, are all about that big picture that you're just now describing. And we have no illusions. We know it's a tough road, but the case has to be made. And if we don't make it, nobody will. Because and other people who are in the coalition are going to be more toward the edge of what you're talking about, Eric. You know what I'm saying? They're going to be more like, leave us alone with the divorce thing. We don't want to talk about that. But me and Katie, we're all on it.
All right. Hey, Eric, thanks. That was great.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm going to hold it right there. So I got to take a short pause. When we come back, Pamela in Lexington, everyone else will take your calls. You can join us, 888-914-9149. There is a movement afoot, a campaign to overturn the decision that redefined marriage in our country. Dr. Jennifer Roback-Morse, who is the founder of the Ruth Institute, is with me today, and we're taking a look at the collateral damage that this has caused for children and so much more. And I'd love to hear from you. You can sound off. Do you think it's possible to reverse the cultural changes like those brought about by Obergefell, that decision that redefined marriage? Were you surprised by how the culture shifted? And why is it that we become so accepting of this? And as Catholics, how should we respond when we are accused, let's say, of being hateful or holding on to traditional marriage? I don't know how you defend it in your family or amongst friends. Love to hear from you. 888-914-9149. Our conversation continues right after this. In October, join Father Rocky and our Relevant Radio family on a deeply spiritual pilgrimage to the Holy Land. You'll visit the sites of the Mysteries of the Rosary and walk where our Lord performed miracles. Now, seats are limited, so reserve your spot now at relevantradio.com/pilgrimage. That's relevantradio.com/pilgrimage.
Marriage is actually the most basic institution of human civilization.
When Obergefell redefined marriage to include same-sex couples, it was billed as a win for adult equality. In reality, it created inequality for children. It made our children less than.
When you redefine marriage, you redefine parenthood. When you make mothers and fathers optional in parenthood law, children are harmed.
We now have these trite phrases like love makes a family, or all you need is just love. As long as your physical needs are met and someone is cheering you on, then apparently you'll grow up fine.
But the kids aren't fine. The kids haven't been fine for quite some time.
You redefine marriage, you have just destroyed the house. You can put together a new house and claim it's the same. Children will know the difference. It harms children in virtually every way imaginable.
The Drew Mariani Show on
on Relevant Radio.
That was a little bit of audio from the Greater Than campaign. And I want to fill you in on it. It's new to me, to be honest. I just discovered this, and I think it's a noble cause. I was just saying to my guest, Dr. Jennifer Roback-Morse from the Ruth Institute, I said, I think it's such an important effort because, this campaign is asking a really big question. What if we have been looking at the marriage debate all wrong? What if it's not just about adult rights, but really, if you look at it from a different perspective, what if it's about children's needs? So this new coalition, Greater Than, they're challenging not just the law, but they want to see a cultural shift that they say is actually hurting children. So if you want to join me, I'd love to hear from you. You can join us at 888-914-9149. Doctor, I want to talk about the campaign, but first, let's jump into the phones, and then we can let people know how they can get more info on this. Pamela is in Lexington, Kentucky. She's been holding for a while. She's a grandmother who has had grandchildren that were adopted by two men. Pamela, good afternoon.
Hi, how are you, dear?
I'm well.
I just want to take time because I grew up in a very strict home. Mm-hmm. And, it was ground shaking at first when this happened. But I will tell you, I have watched two little girls thrive and grow. Now, I don't even want to get into the debate of, the right or the wrong, because I think we pretty much have a world that is so sad right now. It's so sad. People forget people, period. And we're all God's children. Okay. And I think we forget that so much. But they keep saying they want to hear, how it's affecting the kids. I can only tell you what I see in my grandchildren's face. And unfortunately, we don't have any family, that can, all of our families pretty much gone. Right. And I want to tell you, I really cannot say enough. At first, like I said, it shook the ground that I walked on. But these two men, they work different shifts. It's not like, it's not like this is something that these families just throw in the kids. But I could not have handpicked two better human beings to care for my grandchildren in the entire world. I mean, they make sure I'm in every aspect of their life. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it just blows me away to see two people that cared and loved these kids so much.
Well, Pamela,
and my daughter just is not physically. Her fever went to 106. So, they want to know how the kids, how it reacts. And, I think, again, like I told you, it takes a village. And I think when we wake up and we realize that it takes us all. It doesn't take one. It doesn't take two. It takes the whole village to make these children work.
Pamela, I'm so glad you called. I am, because I think you're the voice of a lot of people who are listening right now. And, Doctor, this is one of those things that you're going to hear a lot more of from people, saying, hey, these two men are great parents to this child. And again, I know part of the Greater Than campaign is about restoring the reality that children deserve both a mother and a father. What would you say to somebody who says, well, what if they don't have a father, or what if they don't have a mother, and two men can show love? Pamela feels very included by this. How do you respond to somebody who made a case like that?
So is Pamela still on the line there?
Yes.
Miss Pamela, let me ask you a question. Are you telling me that this is your daughter's child and your daughter's unable to take care of the children? Is that what it is? Okay.
Yes, and me too, due to my disabilities.
And so these are two men who are not related to your family. This is a non-family adoption.
Absolutely not. Correct.
Because, I just wanted to clarify the situation, because there are a lot of children in different kinds of situations, as these things unfold, But the part of what we want to say in the Greater Than campaign is that, and I'm an adoptive mother, okay, and I was a foster mother also, so I know that unrelated adults can take care of kids and do a good job of it. I would never say that was not possible, but I think we need to stay focused on the fact that the best thing would have been for the children to be with for the mama and the papa to be able to get it together so that they could take care of the children. And a lot of families, we've so strayed from the idea of people being responsible for their own kids, that has caused a lot of problems. So, and I know you know that. I know that that's part of your heart here. But the question of whether two men can take care of children, whether two women can take care of children, let me tell you, my friend in this movement, Katie Faust, whom I mentioned already, who founded this movement, really, who founded them before us, she was raised by her mother and her mother's female partner. She was actually raised by two women together. And she loves her mother and she loves her mother partner, but she recognizes that it would have been better if somehow her dad had still been in the picture, if we can regain a sense that the children need the mother and the father. So, and in the campaign, all the campaigning we did over the gay marriage issue and stuff, adoption is an issue that came up from time to time. And cases like this were brought up. And people would say, well, isn't it better that they have two men than that they be in foster care? Isn't that true? And this is different from saying anything about the two men that are in your life, okay, and that are taking care of your daughter. The larger question is that as society moved towards saying, well, we must allow gay couples to be parents, to be adoptive parents, what happened is that they began excluding Christians as foster parents, as adoptive parents. If you couldn't say, I will affirm a gay identity if my child should have a gay identity, if that comes up, I will affirm it. If you could not say that going into the process of becoming a foster parent, you would be excluded from being a foster parent. So what that means is, yeah, you included these gay couples, but you excluded all the people who had traditional values. And, there are a lot more of those people, so the net effect for availability of adults for children surely went down as a result of that whole package. And as you can see, that's not me saying that these two guys are bad guys. That isn't the point here. So,
gotcha. Hey, Pamela, thank you for calling in. I appreciate the perspective, really do. Craig is in Phoenix, Arizona. Craig, you're on with Dr. Morse. Welcome.
Hi, yes. And I probably can't articulate this as well as she can, but back in 1960, we had the contraceptive pill. Mm-hmm. And our Pope Paul VI wrote a document on it, Humanae Vitae, and he prophesied all this. He said the marriage rate, the divorce rate's going to go sky high. The children will suffer. We're going to have a culture of death. Yep. We're going to have the same-sex marriage. We're going to have euthanasia. And I just like to hear her opinion on how bad this contraceptive pill is.
Well, Craig, thank you for bringing that up. And you can see, Drew, already the advantage of this campaign is that it is allowing us to talk about our issues that we think are important. And Craig, you are correct that Pope Paul VI was a prophet, and Humanae Vitae is a valuable document. Everyone should read it, and you should ask your religious educators in your parish to teach out of it, and to bring it forward so people can know what's in it, because you're quite right. He predicted many of the problems that we're seeing. Even he didn't see how far it was going to go, But the reason it's so important is that it isn't just that we're separating sex from babies. It isn't just that we're saying we're going to try to limit our family size. It's not just that. It's the idea that we are entitled to act as if sex and babies are completely disconnected. That's what the contraceptive ideology is all about. And in my book, The Sexual State, I spend, probably a quarter of that book is about the contraceptive ideology, just exactly what it does and how harmful it's been. Because if you think you're entitled to sex without a baby, that opens up the door to all kinds of problems, including, would there be a pornography industry if we didn't think like that? Would there be the divorce situation if we didn't think like that? Would there be a demand for abortion in the same way that there is? A lot of people think, well, if we just have more contraception, we wouldn't have abortion. That has proven to be completely backwards, completely incorrect, because people go into their choice of sexual activity with the idea that it's going to be sterile. And then when it's not, they're like, oh my gosh, I have a problem, and we have to get rid of the baby. So that issue of contraception is extremely important, and I guarantee you there will not be that many people who will be willing to talk about it on this campaign, because we got a lot of evangelicals in that campaign. And that's fine. They love us. They love us. We love them. But, if somebody asks me, I'm going to tell them, that this is a problem.
My guest, Dr. Jennifer Roback-Morse. Doctor, let me take a quick break here, and then we come back. We'll jump back into some phone calls. Thank you for your patience. I see you there. I'm going to grab your call on the other side. Talking about a brand new campaign that's out, if you're just tuning in, and we'll also fill you in a little bit more. You might say, well, what is this Greater Than campaign, Drew? What's it all about? We'll tell you about it, where you can get info, how you can be part of it. And let me ask you this question, too. Would you support legislation that promotes the right of every child to both a mother and a father? What are we going to see play out legally in the days ahead? I'd love to hear your experiences, your thoughts, and we'll continue that conversation right after this. Stay with me. Hey, starting in the fall of 2026, show sponsor University of Mary will increase its offerings to include tuition-free academies in nursing, accounting, and elementary education, plus scholarships in engineering and the humanities. Learn more at umary.edu/tuition-free. That's umary.edu/tuition-free.
The Chaplet of Divine Mercy begins soon on Relevant Radio.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about the new Greater Than campaign, a national movement challenging the fallout from a decision that redefined marriage in this country, known as the Obergefell ruling. And the focus of this campaign is to put children's rights back at the center of the marriage conversation. And you are welcome to join me, too. Feel free to sound off, 888-914-9149. Dr. Jennifer Roback-Morse joins me this afternoon, and you can check her out at the ruthinstitute.org. That's ruthinstitute.org. She is one of a number of organizations, along with Word on Fire, their Institute, Live Action, that are all part of this campaign. And, Doctor, I want to go to the phones, but before I do, tell us a little bit about this. If people want more information on this, where do they get that, and what will they find?
Well, you can find out a lot of stuff by going to the ruthinstitute.org and following us around, because we'll be talking about it. And I know a lot of your listeners already do follow us, so that's great. But this campaign is called Greater Than. And so you can go to greaterthan.com and you'll get all the information you want. Now, the phrase, the name Greater Than, is in contrast to the equal sign that used to be out and about to promote gay marriage. If you remember, people used to go around with bumper stickers that had equal signs, a yellow equal sign on a blue background. This website says Greater Than, and it's got a little blue box with a yellow Greater Than sign on it. and the idea is that the needs of children are greater than the desires of adults. That's the idea. So if you go on the Greater Than page, you can sign up to receive their newsletters. You can be an ally. If you're part of an organization that is in this general area, I don't know if there's an Illinois family. I'm pretty sure there's an Illinois Family Council. They may already be in it. But if you're part of an organization that could plausibly be part of this campaign, there's a place where you can, sign yourselves up, So I would encourage everybody to do that, whatever kind of organization you may be part of. Start talking it up with your colleagues and see if this is something you can be part of.
All right. GreaterThanCampaign.com. That's the website, GreaterThanCampaign.com. You can check it out there. Before I jump to Priscilla and everybody else, a curious thought. Nick and I were talking during the break. What happens, or what should happen, maybe to same-sex couples who have adopted children if Obergefell is overturned? There'll be other issues that arise if that decision gets flipped.
Oh gosh, there would be a lot of issues that would arise, and that's so far down the pike. We know perfectly well that this is not going to be overturned the day after tomorrow. Right. It's going to be overturned in steps. It's going to be overturned because there's a shift in public opinion. So if you look at the About Us page of the Greater Than campaign, what you'll see is a three-part strategy, which includes a judicial and policy strategy that centers children's needs. So there could be a lot of legislation that doesn't directly overturn Obergefell, but which limits some of the damage that's being done. Things like that have to do with birth certificates, for example, and the fact that birth certificates are being falsified. Secondly, changing public opinion. And this is where the Ruth Institute really is, that's where our main role is going to be, Drew, to talk with people about it, right? And then thirdly, a church transformed into a child-centered fighting force. That's Katie's language there. Right. That the church needs to step up to the plate here. Now, as to the particular thing that you just mentioned, if somebody has adopted a child, right, that adoption decree is not going to go away because something happens to the legal definition of marriage. That's just, I don't see that happening under any set of circumstances.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's how I would answer that point.
Sounds good. All right, Priscilla's in Indiana. Priscilla, hi. You're on with Dr. Morse. Go right ahead.
Hi. I have learned throughout the years that I'm a young adult and I'm also a parent. I've learned over the years that it's definitely not about us and what we need, and that being a parent is definitely a sacrifice in itself. And not many people realize the detrimental mental instability that is going through into situations such as the what's it called? The mental detrimental weight that the children carry when it comes to the same-sex marriages. Not only that, they don't have the stability of a father, and they don't have the example that a father is supposed to show to the mother for little girls on how to be treated when they grow up. Like, obviously, if your mom has a partner and she is also a female, and they both are kind of like, they could be great mothers, but at times when we have our menstrual cycle, I mean, who's going to be the stability in that time for the little girl? Like, who's going to be it's okay, mommy's not feeling good. It's all right. You're still my little princess. And then pick her back up and say, hey, mommy's just not feeling all right. But what my question really is how would you guide young parents that are still struggling with the mental load on top of it all? Because, I mean, in all honesty, I feel like the same-sex marriages, all they really need is some guidance towards the Lord and a little bit of push and nudge towards it. Not like an aggressive one, right. But maybe just a consultation, something like, say, hey, there's better things out there. Your husband could be out there, but you're distracted by the flesh and not what's made for you.
So let me let Dr. Morse respond to you. Thanks for calling. Thanks for sharing that perspective.
Well, Priscilla has raised a number of issues. One of them that I would call attention to is the way in which a husband and wife can moderate one another. And one of the things that we've learned from the 10 years of same-sex marriage is that the least stable type of marriage is the two-woman marriage, the lesbian marriage, two women. The female couples break up at higher rates than male couples, and then opposite sex couples. And I had a guest on my show once. Priscilla, you may be interested to know that we have a whole series at the Ruth Institute of interviews with people, we call them, who have left pride behind. A lot of people call them ex-gays, but we call them people who have left pride behind. And I interviewed this one lady who is a lesbian and who's now married. She has teenage children and so on. So you can tell she's been not a lesbian for a long time, But in her 20s, she was very familiar with that and very part of that and had a lot of friends in it and so on and so forth. And somehow in the conversation, the subject came up that the female couples are very unstable. And she said that part of the reason is that we as women have a tendency to seek fulfillment and completion in a relationship. And when we're doing that to each other as women, the drama, she didn't put it like this, but this is me interpreting it, the drama and the angst increases and builds up, and it becomes very codependent. Whereas your husband, a man can look at that and not get wrapped up in it and say, honey, you need to get a grip, And it's like, when he says that, a lot of times we're like, talk to me like that. What do you mean get a grip? But then 5 minutes later, you got a grip and you see that he was right, you know. Yeah. And so that's one of the dynamics. And this lady I interviewed, I said that, you know, also there's more domestic violence in lesbian relationships. And she said, oh yeah, I knew about that. You know, I knew a couple where the woman left, her partner left, and she was so enraged that her partner left her, she murdered her. Wow. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. So the way in which we relate to each other, men and women relate to each other in different ways, and at our best, we can complement each other and moderate each other. And it's a lot harder if you don't have an opposite sex partner.
All right. Hey, thank you very much, Priscilla. Let's sneak Vinny in very quickly. He's in Cortland, Ohio. Hi, Vinny.
Hello.
Hey, Vinny, you're on. Go right ahead.
Oh, yes. Okay. Hello, doctor. And how are you doing, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing great. Go right ahead, Vinny. I have a minute or two for you, brother.
Yes. Okay. So just real quick, I'm going on what God stated in the book of Leviticus. Correct me if I'm wrong. No man with another man, no woman with another woman. And so this isn't man-made. This wasn't my idea, okay? This was what God said. So if God's saying it, that's pristine. That is law, okay, in my opinion. I don't agree with same-sex raising a child. I'm sorry. As the child, okay, you don't think down deep. Children are smart. You don't think down deep. They're going to look at a friend, and how are you going to say if you have two dads? Who are you going to say? This is my dad. This is my mom.
Yeah, Vinny, let me hold you on that point because that's kind of what this campaign is all about. I mean, there's a lot of issues that children growing up in that environment will be challenged by. And Doctor, that's really, I'm going to get some final thoughts from you. I have about a minute or two for you on this campaign. And I don't know how it's going to be received, how much traction you're going to get, but this is really all about the children, isn't it? Some final thoughts.
Yes, that's exactly right. And the point that Mr. Vinny made there, that it's God's law. The way we look at it here at Greater Than, the way we look at it at the Ruth Institute is, if it's God's law, then we should be able to observe in the world around us that things go better when you do it God's way, and things have a lot of problems when you don't do it God's way. And so we know we got a lot of people out there who are not following the Lord whatsoever. You know, we're all painfully aware of that. We all have relatives who aren't following the Lord. So when we're in communication with them, one of the things we hope to do is to direct their attention, as Vinny did at the end of his comment, direct your attention to the way in which things aren't going the way they should be going, to the longing that the child has for the missing parent, that they look at the other kids in their neighborhood and they go, why don't I have a dad? Why don't I have a mom? You know, whatever it is. And that's already been documented from the children of these relationships.
Well, please check out the campaign. We'll link over to it too here at Relevant Radio. It's the greaterthancampaign.com. Dr. Morse, we'll talk more about it, I'm sure, in the future. Keep up your great work, okay? God bless you.
Sounds great, Drew. Thanks for having me.
Got it. The Chaplain of Divine Mercy is straight ahead. Let's pray. All right, let's pray. So many things to pray for. We'll do that right after this.